States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Clerk, roll call, please.
Okay, today's roll call. Smith is excused. Jaffa,
Here.
Paquette,
Here.
Hughes,
Here.
Lemus, Lawrence. Okay, I don't see him. And Chair Schneider,
Here.
you have a quorum.
Thank you, ma'am. Citizens' comments on any subject except those items scheduled for public hearing. Do we have anyone signed in?
No, ma'am.
All right, thank you. That brings us to approval of the agenda and consent agenda. Could I please get a motion and a second?
I'll make a
A
motion.
motion to approve the agenda, consent agenda.
I'll second it.
All right, thank you, Carl and Linda. Any discussion on the agenda? Okay, seeing none, could we please get a roll call vote?
Voting on the approval of today's agenda and consent agenda. Jaffa,
Yes.
Lemus,
Yes.
Paquette,
Yes.
Hughes,
Yes.
and Chair Schneider.
Yes.
Your agenda and consent agenda are approved, and approved on today's consent agenda is the March 3rd, 2021 regular meeting minutes.
Thank you very much. Special orders, presentations, and reports. First up, Alaska Railroad report. We have a written report on page 3, and I don't know if Mayor Terry had said she was going to join us by phone today.
She's here in person.
Oh, in person. Christy, hello, welcome.
Hi, thank you. So I will refer to I'll just brief through my written report through the chair and to the board. We are really gearing up for a heavy mobbing season. So right now we have both sides of our cruise ship dock full. I don't know if folks have been looking out in the bay, but we have a Dunlap towing barge circling that was not able to dock yesterday due to high winds, so they're waiting for that opportunity. So we actually have quite a few dock conflicts as we move into the next 2 weeks trying to juggle and get everyone in, which is always a great sign on good things to come. Just kind of a point of interest is we're planning on having a third SBS SeaTac barge into Seward. Normally we get between 1 or 2 because of ice in Cook Inlet, but with the cold weather, looks like we will get a third. Now that depends if they're delayed by weather. There might be enough melting in Anchorage, but we're counting on another 9,000 short tons of sheetrock and lumber to come through here, which just gives an opportunity for our Longshore Union to have additional work through the end of this season. Just to remind folks, we are following all CDC recommendations, so there is a federal mask recommendation or regulation at the cruise ship terminal. We have not yet announced the successful proposer for our cruise ship dock project, but I'm expecting that any day now at the very latest before the end of this month. And we have been, actively monitoring the 2021 cruise ship schedule. So what does it mean to have one confirmed cruise ship on July 13th? So those other ships are still, quote unquote, on the schedule, but this ship is actually confirmed because they have provided notice to the CDC. So they provided their plan to the CDC. They will be docking in the southeast in May, loading all their crew, and they have on the books a test sailing. So they'll be doing that test sailing, and then there's enough time for them to start their voyages late June, early July. So they are the only vessel at this point that have a plan submitted and approved by the CDC moving forward that will dock in Seward. So we're just like everyone else, we're monitoring day by day. I did want to bring up a couple things. So the CDC did provide feedback that has been requested back to the lines. And honestly, the lines responded on Monday and said that the CDC issued requirements are onerous for the cruise line industry, considering that 5 months after the original order, the CDC issued relaxed guidance for domestic and international travel due to vaccine progress and recognition for the other modes of transportation. So you'll see ongoing dialogue with those cruise lines about the CDC's response. They're not really happy. I don't know if you've seen the most recent news story that one of the cruise lines said that they won't even dock in the U.S. until they start getting more favorable cooperation from the CDC. I do want to bring up one item of note that we're really tracking is they've said to restart, the CDC requires that cruise lines, ports, and local health authorities have formal agreements in place prior to sailing, and that one agreement per port per cruise operator. And we're just kind of standing by right now. Cruise lines, CLIA, Cruise Lines International, they have given us some guidance that there's no reason for us to jump ahead and do a lot of unnecessary work. So we're really waiting to hear and get some guidance from the lines, from CLIA on what those agreements need to look like, because anything that we pre-do might not match what actually needs to get done. So I just want to assure folks that we are tracking that, but we need to do it in a measured, responsible way and not waste a lot of energy on something that's not going to be helpful or approved. So, and the last thing I do want to say that the board's been noticed about is that we will have the Coastal Classic coming into Seward daily from May 29th to September 6th. So that's really good news, and that has not changed and will not change. So that's just a quick run through, and if there's any questions.
Yeah, does anyone on the board have questions for the port manager?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, board member Jaffa?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Christie. We see you as the point for the railroad in Seward, and I would hope that all of the decisions are made through the hierarchy of the railroad. And I'd just like to confirm that the board of directors and hasn't just dumped this on you. It's all your planning and trying to keep the railroad commercial is being shared through the whole organization.
Oh yeah, that's a great point. So I don't know, it's been a while, and COVID hasn't helped with that, since we've had some of our larger corporate, our CEO, Bill O'Leary, is very involved. We have Tim Sullivan, he's our legislative outreach person working with Juneau and the feds. And then Dale Wade is our vice president of tourism and marketing. And then also Jim Kubitz is my vice president in real estate. All those folks are actively involved. I'm keeping them briefed on many of the aspects. And then, there's planning happening at a larger level specific to COVID. I'm on the COVID response team, so we're meeting bi-weekly on that. And, so it definitely is a team approach. And then and I just try to track as closely as possible and push that information upwards.
Good, thank you.
Does anyone else have questions for the port manager? Okay, seeing none, I don't have any other questions other than I was going to ask when that the cruise ship dock was going to be available, but you answered that, so I'm very anxious for that still. Really curious to see what comes out of that process. One thing that I'll just note from our work session that we had with planning and zoning, when we were looking at zoning in industrial areas, one thing that we noted was that retail is not an authorized use inside the industrial area. So I guess I had assumed that any project for the cruise ship terminal was going to include retail space, but I saw that under our current land use is allowed, that's not allowed in the industrial area unless it's specifically marine retail. So that's just something that's been on my mind since we had that work session. But I'll wait to see what the final outcome of this RFP process is.
That sounds good. Yeah, and that is a good point. We don't have any retail currently at the cruise ship terminal. We do have transportation and, booths available for tours that are specific to the marine aspects. So that's good, something to watch. And actually, within that RFP process, I do know the zoning information was provided to the proposers.
Perfect. Well, I don't have anything else unless anyone has any follow-ups. All right, thank you so much,
Thank
Christy.
you.
And I look forward to seeing you next month in person, which is my last Zoom meeting. So that brings us to the Chamber of Commerce report.
All right. I hope you guys are all doing well, and you guys have my report there. I did want to just go over a couple of highlights and maybe just give a little bit of updates. As far as the AEV charging station goes, we have made some progress on that. We have Rob and I have a meeting with a potential vendor this next week. And so it's a learning process on going through how that grant works and working with the vendor. And then also there are some other people that are going to be on that call as well that are interested in putting EV charging stations here in town. And so we're making good progress on that and hope to have that in the summer. As far as the solar piece goes, we had a meeting last week with Ben Smith, Phil Kaluza, Lori Lancham, and myself, and looking at ways that we can partner to have a solar kind of education demonstration and actually an active site there at the chamber as well. So that's pretty exciting. And then I don't know if you guys have noticed or you're on Facebook much, but right now we do have our community awards going on, and right now we're having kind of a nominee a day on Facebook. So please be sure and check those things out. And just a really great celebration of people and the things they did this strange COVID year. And the community awards will be in, it's kind of more of a virtual event, just because last year we did it and there was a very large gathering. And so it'll be kind of a semi-virtual event this year. But just again, if you haven't seen it already, make sure you check out on Facebook. And just it's great to recognize all the people and things they did this year. The website is going to be coming out, it's going to be launching on May 11th. And so we'll have a marine face, a visitor face, hometown face, and a conference and wedding face as well. So we're really excited about that, and a lot of work behind the scenes has been going in on that. So yeah, we're excited for that. And so I'll make sure that there'll be a big announcement, and you guys will see it. So that's kind of an exciting thing. And that's about all I have, unless you guys have any questions.
Thank you, Jason. Any questions from the board? Okay, so I guess my only question is, did the chamber sign up for the Solarize campaign, or have you been, has RES reached out to you to see about getting that special pricing if you did want to put the solar on the chamber building?
No, we kind of talked about this before that, and they're looking at, they have some equipment that would be Avtex that they would kind of loan to us as that demonstration site, just so that they can do the install on it and maintain it and work with it, which would be a little bit different than the Solarize, the Kenai piece, just because it would obviously still provide solar power, but it would serve a couple of other different purposes that way. And so we did not go through the Solarize, the Kenai.
Gotcha. Okay. No, I was just curious because I know they're coming down to start doing to start doing estimates for people
Mhm.
in the next few weeks. So, but that's great. Sounds like a great joint venture.
Yeah, we're
Any
excited
other
about it.
questions for the chief director? Okay, thank you so much, Jason.
All right, thank you.
And I would just like to note that we have Colby Lawrence joining us at 12:16 on via Zoom. Hey, Colby, how are you?
Great. I apologize for being late.
No, it's all good. Thanks for joining. Okay, so next is the Harbor Master report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, apologize to the PACA members so I had to have this report in, and I was on vacation, so I sent it before I left, so some things have changed. Now, so the water, they're starting to get ready to start turning the water on here shortly. Actually, the 50-ton lifts have really picked up, and so the 330 lifts across the bay. We're still kind of scraping ice across at SMIC. It's pretty bad, but we've got the water flowing. Fishing place is still down. We're still short one office staff in the front office. And just a note that Melody is retiring at the end of the month. There's going to be a retirement party at the American Legion on the 24th at 6 p.m. But we're going to try to do a presentation here at in the council meeting for Melody, give her a proclamation on the 26th. We're going to be opening up 7 days a week here in a few more weeks. And then for the Northeast Harbor Launch Ramp, we're actually at 75% design. We're working on 75% design. We're almost done with that. So just the price is going up because the price of lumber is so high. We're trying to get a new amount, rough amount what it's going to cost because lumber is almost doubled. So that's all I got.
Thank you. Questions for the Harbor Master? Okay, seeing and hearing none. Norm, my only question for you is the outcome of the public comment process for that Northeast Harbor launch ramp. Is that complete, and what has an option been officially selected?
Yeah, so it was complete, and they announced it at the council meeting when they did the presentation to council. They're going to go with the fish cleaning station owned by itself with the 4 lanes. And at our meeting yesterday, I did talk to them about you wanted the 4 charging stations, which I was going to talk to you about. Definitely could be implemented in there. We're just trying to find the right location, so we'll get you involved with that when it comes up.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry. I can talk to you about that offline.
Okay. Yep.
But yeah, yeah. Just for the board, my company asked that 4 stations or 4 parking spots be set aside so that we can install charging stations in the lot that we have adjacent to that parking spot. So we would install the infrastructure, but we just asked that the stalls be set aside on the city side. So that's what that was in regards to. Any more questions for the Harbor Master? All right. Thank you very much. That brings us to our next presentation on Happy Youth Programs and Educational Resources, also known as HYPER. We have a presentation today by Casey Warner. Casey, welcome, and thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, thank you so much for having me today. I'm going to go ahead and kind of condense the presentation just a tad bit so that way we can talk a little bit more about the model that HYPER has envisioned to achieve our goal. So my name is Casey Warner. I'm here today to present on Happy Youth Programs and Educational Resources, also known as HYPER. HYPER was formed in early 2020 in a response to a community workshop that we put on to kind of get the community involved in coming up with some creative solutions around our early childhood care and education issue here in Seward. And so we came together in 2020 and we put out a survey to gather some community data. We had 62 individuals fill out that survey with a total of 89 children below the age of 5. We know in our community at the time of that survey, we only had 48 slots available between our licensed and unlicensed child care providers. Through our Baby Welcome Wagon program, we know that Seward has roughly 52 babies born a year into the community, and that stays pretty consistent with the number of children entering into our kindergarten. So if we've got 52 babies a year being born, that gives us roughly about 250 children under the age of 5, and with only 48 slots available, that's a pretty big gap in our child care resources. So currently we know that families are accessing, 63% of our participants are accessing family, friends, or unlicensed child care at least one day a week to provide child care while they are in the workforce. Many are opting to work staggered schedules as well, or having one step out of the workforce, which this does dramatically impact our local economy. And so why does it matter? We know that it matters from Threads Economic Study. They do one of those every 2 years. They just put out a new one for 2021. And so the economic study shows that when childcare is made possible for families to be employed, the average increase in earnings for a 2-parent household with the second parent in the workforce is $35,000 a year. And for a single parent working in the labor force, their annual income goes up by $50,000. So when young children are available, when adults with young children are available to work, it increases the household income, which results in a higher standard of living for young children and helping children who may otherwise be living in or near the poverty line. Providing early childhood education and care matters because it also is a space that helps prevent and counter adverse childhood experiences. And we know what we can do. I'm going to jump over to slide 7 here. The CDC recommends 5 strategies and approaches to supporting young children. And one of the ways to support young children is support families' financial security. And 1 year's age where children can go in and have an interactive learning environment. And some of that tuition or admission fees that we would have for the Children's Museum would help subsidize the cost of childcare, because we know that it is expensive to operate and oversee a child care center. So that would help with building cost, as well as employee salaries and trainings, because there's lots of trainings and accreditations that individuals have to keep up on a regular basis to be able to work in a licensed child care center. And so I had some conversations with Laura around this model, and she had sent me an email with a few questions that I had answered. But I think I might just open it up if anybody from PACAB has any questions for me, and just kind of move forward from there.
Yeah, that sounds great, Casey. Thank you so much. Great, great presentation. If anyone got to see a little bit longer version of the council meeting, but thanks for condensing it to give us some time for questions here. So I'd like to open it up to the board. I see that Board Member Paquette has her hand up.
Yeah, thank you for this presentation. I'm curious, on this last slide, you've got a picture of the Big Bay building there. Mm-hmm. What is there a plan to get that building or to resurrect that building?
Mm-hmm. So just so everybody knows, we have been exploring multiple different physical locations to be able to develop this idea. And so the Big Bay building, of course, is ran as a child care center for a few years. It's now been closed for a little while. It did just come on the market, and Hyper and the team, when we knew that was coming up on the market, we had a discussion. Well, we don't want this to go to loss to the community. because it's already set up as a childcare center. It would change our vision a little bit of how we would operate the childcare museum and childcare center, if we were able to secure that building. But also we wouldn't have to redesign the wheel. It's already right there. So we are exploring ways to secure the building or potential partnerships, with the city or private entities, really just anything to try and keep that resource into the community. But also just so everybody does know, if we are unable to secure that building, this is still a vision that we plan to move forward with, and we are flexible in how we're gonna meet that goal.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to ask.
Member Smith?
Okay. First question is this your information, your data information is only based on licensed daycare centers?
No, we also surveyed in early 2020, we surveyed our unlicensed childcare centers, so that's individuals that are just caring for a few children in their home and are not licensed by the state.
And how many such facilities exist in the community of Seward?
I did not bring those specific numbers with me, but I do have that data in my office that I would be happy to email out, and you guys can see all of the data that we collected from our 2020 survey. And also just to note, we did just close out our 2021 survey at the end of last month. So we will have some updated data coming out as well from that survey.
Well, I think Bruce might know. I'm not sure if Linda knows or not, but there used to be a daycare center in the downtown area of Seward. In fact, my children went to it, and Nana's Nuggets. And there were 30 kids that she was taking care of, and she was tired and no one stepped up to take her place. And I'm wondering if we really need to invest as a community in something that's a little larger that can handle more kids to overcome the shortfall that we have as far as daycare centers.
Yeah, so I just want to clarify with you, Casey, the model that you're looking at, or the size space you're looking at, you're hoping 40 kids in the long run in this facility. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah. Currently, 40 kids is what we've kind of been gearing to, and we've actually chosen the number of 40 kids based off of the Big Bay building and the licensing that they had available there. So there is, and this is not my specific area of expertise. We have somebody on the Hyper board who knows more about licensing, but there are regulations around square footage and room space, and the number of children that you can care for in that specific foot plan. So with Big Bay building, they were licensed for up to 20 children on the upper level. And then if we were able in the Big Bay building to use the lower level, that would be another 20 children that we could provide childcare for.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, where is this facility located at, this picture of? I actually don't know where this is at.
It's right across from the Aztec gym.
Okay. I know which place this is.
Board Member Paquette?
So now I'm a little confused. If you got that building and you used both the upper and the lower level, where would the museum be?
So the museum would have to have another physical location for the Children's Museum. And right now what we've got going for the Children's Museum is we are we're gonna be doing pop-up exhibits, one every quarter. So we're currently working on securing funding for our first pop-up exhibit that will be taking place at the end of August, beginning of July, or end of July, beginning of August. And it's gonna run for roughly about 4 weeks. We're gonna have it hosted at the Temple Studios building over by the post post office. And so that right now for the museum, what we're gonna be doing is just some pop-up exhibits that will take place at separate locations. It will help us build our exhibit inventory until we're able to secure a larger permanent location. But that way we're still able to.
So it's not a
sell.
combined child care museum, it's two separate things, got it?
So we, originally when we had come up with this plan, is it would be combined. They would be together in one physical location. But like I had mentioned, we are open and flexible and creative in our physical location. And if it is that we are able to secure a resource that's already available, such as the Big Bay building, we could adapt our children's museum model
Okay.
to fit that, and we could just use the financial piece of that to help
Got it.
carry the child care center.
Got it.
Any other questions from the board? Okay. Casey, I just have a couple of questions for you. Currently, Hyper is under the umbrella of the Steward Prevention Coalition, is that correct?
Correct.
And so moving forward, the goal would the goal be, if you were to secure property and things like that, for that to move out of that umbrella, or do you envision it being part of the Steward Prevention Coalition and keeping that partnership moving forward?
We would always keep our partnership with SPC, with Steward Prevention Coalition. As we grow and become a larger entity, there is discussion and something that we still need to do a little more research and explore a bit more about it, Hyper and our vision becoming its own 501(c)(3).
Okay. And then my last question is just how we can help you. I think that everyone here knows and understands that this is such a big problem for our community and that we need to take action. And I thank you and your board and everyone who's been a part of this process. It's so awesome that you've been collecting this data and that you've been putting so much time and energy into it. So how can we as an advisory board to the city help you to either get your message out or to help to bring forward your ideas? Is there anything specific that you're asking the city for that we can, help you to develop and support? Where can we support you in your mission?
I think right now, what our biggest ask is gonna be is, we need a physical location. And whether that be the Big Bay building or another physical, location within the city limits, that's really, I feel, what our biggest ask and partnership is gonna come from.
So if you had a facility, let's just say a facility available overnight, before the museum was able to be in operation, do you envision opening this care center as soon as possible, maybe with grant funding or other ways of getting it online before the museum piece comes into play? Or what is that timeline for getting the center up and running look like in your mind? And I know there's so many variables, but just kind of a rough idea.
Well, at the forefront of our mission and our drive is to really get those child care slots available and get quality early childhood care available to our families so they can get into the workforce, so our children are ready to enter into kindergarten with the base knowledge that is necessary for their success. And so if we could overnight get a child care center up and running, we would focus our energy on that and keep our museum pop-up model running until we are able to get the museum together. So on the road, if we were able to secure the Big Bay building, we would get that up and operating as quickly as possible, and have the museum kind of come on the tail end of that.
Perfect. Do you feel that there's enough people in Seward to fill the staffing requirements of a facility for, let's say, 20 children at the beginning? I don't know what those requirements would be, but do you have the feeling that those needs could be filled rather quickly?
I think for 20 children, we would be able to, we would be able to get some staffing in there. I think what part of it's gonna come down to is gonna be retaining the staff, and keeping them, up to date on their qualifications, cause they're, you know, they have to go to Anchorage for some of that training, or to Sedona, and so then that takes more money for travel and, other expenses of going out of town. So I think retaining and keeping our staff up to the quality standards would be where we would run into, maybe some roadblocks, but it's definitely not doable. Big Bay operated for a number of years, and they were able to keep some staff there. I think there's some potential with partnering with UAA or UAF with some of their students that are coming out of their early education program. UAA, I think they've closed their department there, but UAF does still offer that program. And so I think there's some partnership there that could potentially happen to keep our staffing up to date.
Awesome. Thank you for all of that. Board Member Jaffa.
Yeah, thank you, Sheriff Snyder. You touched on something that I think is important, and that is how PACAP could offer the support or advice on this. And unfortunately, I don't have the packet available, but letters of advocacy from stakeholders or users that the group has acquired. If it's a local school, you talked about kindergarten entry. If the local school system has letters of support in, or other types of agencies that you might interact with, it'd be important to have that. The data that Board Member Hughes mentioned, I definitely like to see what your projections are based on. I think we all probably have a feeling and are in agreement that child care is an important, extremely important part of the work world, and Nana's Nuggets was a treasure chest for us, and our kids all did very well there. So I know this type of thing is beneficial, but for our board to lend assistance, I'd want that information, that data, and letters of support that you might have acquired.
Great. I will be sure to send over the data once I'm back in the office, so that way you all can see it. And I do have a number of letters of support that I can also get over to you all with that data.
And a follow-up, have you presented to council at all, or is this your first inroad with the city?
Yes, I did present to council at the beginning of last month.
Very good, thank you.
And it was actually at that council meeting, Bruce, that council asked that Casey be put in touch with PACAB so that we could help. So that's why I'm really wanting to, I don't want to have this presentation and then go nowhere with it. I'd like to have a chance to brainstorm how we might be able to help and how we might be able to advise the city on how the city can help. I know that in my emails with Casey, she mentioned that there is a grant that they're applying for that requires a cash match. It cannot be in-kind donations. It has to be a cash match for an up to $250,000 grant. It is budget time, and I know that it's not the best, it has not been the best financial year, but a cash ask, I think, is something that would be reasonable for something like this that is so beneficial for the city. But it's definitely something that needs to be looked at and thought about, and seeing what projects would be allowed by that grant and what the money would be used for, and make sure that there's buy-in from everyone for the city putting money towards this. But I'm a believer in it personally, and I again just thank this volunteer team for all of the really hard work that they're doing behind the scenes, and I'd just like to see something really concrete come out of this. So we as a board are running out of time before our hiatus. So I'd like to ask that we have an agenda item, put a discussion item on next month's agenda so that we can take action on things. Maybe by then we can have, we might have something written up. Maybe we can continue talking with Casey and come up with maybe a more specific ask to have in there and have PACAB discuss it and make an official recommendation to council if we think we can do so with the data that we have. So I'd like to shoot for that at our first meeting of next month. Board Member Paquette.
Thank you, Chair Snyder. I just want to throw this out here. I don't know, I'm brainstorming, but I'm wondering if there's any CARES money that might be able to be used towards this. So I just want to throw that out there.
That's a great question. I don't know the status of the CARES money for the city. I thought in what I've seen that it has all been distributed, because I know there were timelines associated with that, but I don't know if there is more money coming down the line or if that would be a possibility, but I think that's a great suggestion. And maybe I can ask administration if you know offhand.
So that's, Madam
if
Chair,
there's any-
all the CARES money has been spent, but there's more coming in, but we're not sure when or how much. So, but I know our budget is, the city's budget is depleted, so we'll see where it goes. It's up to council. So,
Okay, thank you. Board Member Hughes.
Madam Chair, I do concur with you on putting that as an agenda item on next month. But I want to stress that, as Bruce said, we really need to have some data too, because we are an advisory panel or board for the city council, and we really need that information. And I also want to thank Ms. Werner for a very nice presentation, and that Nana's Nuggets was pretty instrumental in our children growing up, and she was phenomenal treasure. Too bad she had to retire.
Board Member Jaffe, you had your hand up as well.
I did, and Chair Snyder, are you asking that we have a resolution for the next meeting? And if so, I would move to put that as an item, in a positive resolution to support this activity, and then we can debate it and have an action coming out of that next meeting.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I guess I hadn't suggested specifically a resolution, but I think that could be done, and maybe I can work with the clerk to format that, and again, maybe have some suggestions for specific asks that we can then discuss and vote on at that meeting. Because again, that will be our last meeting to take action on anything until September. So, yes. So, Madam Clerk, just to clarify, can we please get that as an item on our May agenda?
Yes, and I will work with Casey to get all the documentation from her and provide it to the commission.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Chair Hughes, or Snyder?
Yes, Board Member Jeffcoat.
Sorry. I would encourage the group to get us the strongest possible case they can, and not assume that it's just going to be a rubber stamp. To do the work that they've already done, just present it so we can use it.
Thank you. Any last questions or comments for Ms. Werner? All right, Casey, thank you so very much for being here, and thank you for answering my questions via email. I'm really excited about the work that you're doing, and I just want to see you guys be successful. So I look forward to being part of that process moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Great. Well, in terms of key business, item A, Resolution 2021-002, recommending that City Council amend Morton Harbor Tariff Regulations to increase vessel storage rates in the Seward Marine Industrial Center, SMIC Yard, effective January 1st, 2022. That's on page 19 of your packet. And Mr. Regis, I will turn this over to you.
Can we need a motion, please?
Oh, I'm so sorry. Can I please get a motion to put this resolution on the floor? Thank you, Madam Clerk.
I'll make a motion.
I move to put the, I'm sorry, I don't have the resolution number, but this on on the floor.
Thank you.
Can we get a second?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, Member Hughes second. Thank you. Okay, now the motion is on the floor. Mr. Regis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So we had a work session and discussing all the about SMIC. The price has been, low for a number of years, and with a great work with everybody and coming up with great numbers. And I think we came up with something that we can work with, and it's not a big sticker shock for everybody. And I think what it will do is raising the prices up. It will hopefully deter people who just want to store the vessels there and instead of having a working yard. Because actually right now we have a problem. We have a waiting list for people who want to get their boats out and work on it before the fishing season. So we have a bunch of boats there being stored, not doing any work, just taking up space. I mean, it's not a bad thing when we had the room, but now this is becoming an issue. So I think PACAP support for this, and we just we get this done and get it before council so we can actually add it into our budget process here for this coming 2-year cycle.
Oh, I'm so sorry. My computer froze. I apologize, Norm. You were explaining where things were at. Were you finished?
I was finished, Madam Chair.
Okay, all right, thank you. I'll turn it over to the board then. Board Member Jaffa.
Thank you, Chair Snyder. I had the opportunity to visit Seward, be in Seward yesterday or the day before, and I actually took a photograph or movie of the harbor, and I've looked at it several times. And in comparing it to other harbors I've looked at, of course the scenery is tremendous, but the harbor looks excellent. I see commercial activity. I see recreational activity. The docks are in great shape. I haven't heard really a whole lot of negative. I think Board Member Lawrence and Hughes and yourself, Chair Snyder, are closest to it. But as an outside observer looking in, the harbor's done an excellent job. I can't believe that we're going to scare anybody away with obvious need to correct or update rates. So I will vote in favor of this resolution.
All right, thank you, Board Member Jaffa. Any comments from the rest of the board? Yeah, thank you so much for bringing this back to us. It looks to me, in reading through it, that it's exactly what we discussed at the last meeting. The only thing that I thought was that in section 1, after now therefore be it resolved, when I was reading it the first time, I kind of did a double take when I read the second increase. Because at first I was thinking that meant that just for the first year you were going to raise it to 20 cents, and then the second year the rates were going to go up to 30 cents, when really it means the second year that a vessel is in the yard. So I just thought that maybe some people would want clarification there. Again, I recognized my mistake after reading further down that was talking about the progression if a vessel stays in the yard past that first year. But I just thought an outsider reading this might think this means that the next year we're going to raise it to 30 cents, and it's going to continue raising for everyone. So maybe just a word in there to saying for the first year. I don't know. I don't know exactly what to say. Maybe the second continuous year or the second continuous 12 months, just something to state that what we're saying here is it's a progression in rates if you never leave the yard, not that these rates are going up year over year. Does that Does that make sense?
I see what you're saying, Madam Chair, yes. So when I present it to council, it says the same vessel. That's what you're trying to mean, the same vessel. We'll come up with something for that.
Okay, Board Member Lawrence.
I agree with you. When I was reading through it, I knew the intent, but the wording is a little, makes me a little confused. So I think saying something like having not left the yard, or, continuously having been in the yard, something like that, would be helpful, because I absolutely agree with you that it could be to a person who hasn't been in the meetings that we've been in, that could say, so if I come in 2021, it's 20 cents per foot, but if I leave and come back in 2022, it's going to be 30 cents. So I agree with you on that.
So Madam Chair, what I was gonna do, so we took this from the tariff. So there's a sentence, the beginning of the sentence in the tariff that states what it is. We can put that in front of it, and then it'll explain it much better.
Okay.
Madam Chair.
Yeah, Board Member Hughes.
That, and I think it's pretty simple. For a second continuous year of storage, the rate will increase. They may want to start it at that point, not have the increase at the beginning, but start at the beginning with the qualification of this is the second continuous year of storage.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was thinking, is maybe just simply, we might just modify it here, Norm, so that when this goes forward, I was thinking in that second paragraph where the second increase, maybe just say, if the vessel does not leave the yard after 1 year, the rate will increase. So I'm making a motion to add the language in front of the second increase in section 1. If a vessel does not leave the yard after 12 months, the rate will increase, or I guess increase is already there. So we're just adding, if the vessel does not leave the yard within 12 months, the rate will, and then it'll read fully, increase from 20 cents per foot per day to 30 cents per foot per day for the second year. And then maybe the other paragraphs after that will follow with that same logic. So that's my motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second that, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so any discussion on that motion? Board Member Paquette.
I'm just wondering if it would be easier to simply add the word continuous. So increase from 20 per foot to 30 per foot per day for the second continuous year of storage. And then the third continuous year of storage, the fourth continuous year. I don't know. Just a
So
thought.
I like that. I will withdraw my motion. Board Member Jaffa?
I would speak on the motion that's on the floor. I think there are probably a variety of ways to describe and get to the same point. If the continuous 12 months, if the 12 months satisfies description, if somebody's going to mince words, the harbor master can certainly rebut that with the intent of the board and council. So any particular wording would work, I would think, and you've got a motion on the floor. And I would vote in favor of that motion.
Okay. I guess it doesn't preclude that we could also add the word continuous.
You're the maker and the second.
Yeah. All right, so Board Member Paquette, as my second, what would your, what are your feelings?
I like simplicity, so the cleanest way to say what we're trying to say with the fewest number of words, I think is best. But I'm flexible as well.
Madam Chair, I think continuous is perfect. I think keep it short and sweet, and then when
Yeah, no, thank you. Okay, so I will withdraw my motion with the permission of my second. Okay, so Board Member Paquette, would you like to make a motion?
Sure, I'll make a motion that we add the word continuous into each of these increased bullets. after the word, after each year. So first continuous, second continuous, third continuous, fourth, etc.
Okay, and I will second that. So discussion on this motion.
Call for the question.
Okay. All right, Madam Clerk, roll call vote, please.
Okay, voting on that amendment. Lemus,
Yes.
Lawrence,
Yes.
Paquette,
Yes.
Jaffa,
Yes.
Hughes,
Yes.
Chair Schneider.
Yes.
That amendment is approved.
All right, thank you. That was really the only thing I saw. Does anyone have any other amendments that they would like to make to this motion?
Call for a vote on the resolution.
All right, Madam Clerk, could we get a roll call vote on the main motion on the floor?
Voting on the main motion, Resolution 2021-002 as amended. Lemus,
Yes.
Hughes,
Yes.
Jaffa,
Yes.
Paquette,
Yes.
Lawrence,
Yes.
and Chair Schneider.
Yes.
That resolution is approved.
Thank you. Okay, that's the end of resolutions, bringing us to section B, other new business items. And so the last new business item on the agenda is to review and provide recommendations to council on the vessel property tax. As a reminder, we looked at this quite extensively last year, and we decided that we did not want to. Board Member Lena, excuse me.
I have an appointment at 1, I gotta jump off.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Aaron.
We had decided last year that we were not going to make any recommendation on the vessel property tax because we were in the year of COVID and because the city's sales tax coffers were depleted. So I'd like to bring this back up before the board because we do have this on our priorities and see if anyone has any new thoughts or ideas on this issue for this year. Okay, so seeing no hands, I'm going to assume this means that the board's position has not changed, meaning that we see this as that currently we see no changes necessary to this vessel property tax structure. I know after last time we made this recommendation, we got a letter from the port manager saying that larger vessels were saying this was a deterrent from bringing their vessels to Seward, so that it's not a non-issue, that it is keeping us from having some vessels here, but is there anything that we want to do on this issue further this year? Board Member Paquette.
I'm curious what the harbor master would say about this.
Well, let's ask the harbor master. Mr. Regis, what do you have to say about this?
So Madam Chair, I agree, we need to do something with the tax. Once again, I don't know if this is the right year to do it, because this tax money goes to the general fund, does not go into the harbor fund. So it definitely will affect the general fund. And I think the number was, I believe, $240,000, if I remember right. I don't have that number in front of me, it was roughly that, is what would affect the general fund and lost revenue. We're full right now. If you drive through, you see the harbor's full. We have the barges and stuff, so they're coming in, and I understand. I did receive a letter from a gentleman he was concerned about the tax, and like I explained to him, you can always appeal to the borough. I know that's not, that's one way of doing it, but maybe in the future, maybe next year, next fall, we can look at it, because we actually be going into the budget year too, so it's something we can look at in the fall again. But like I said, it is tied to the mill rate, so it's a lot more involved.
Do we, second question if I may, do we have data like we had for storage? So comparing other harbors with their property tax rates?
We had that when we did that, it was presented when we had this, work session on this. There was a paper out, because like, so Homer's a flat rate, Kenai is not a flat rate, similar to ours minus smaller vessels. And we had talked about leaving, just, leaving our smaller vessels the same, but the larger vessels, giving them a flat rate. We had talked about that, and that would reduce some of the things. But it was presented at that one.
Okay, I'd have to go back and look at that
Okay.
data, I think.
Board Member Jaffa?
I think tax structures are complicated in that they do several things besides raise revenue. They do have a significant impact in commerce and public relations. And at this point, I think we should give our new city manager a chance to get his feet on the ground, or her feet on the ground, and be able to advise on this. So at this time, I think I would agree with the Harbor Master interim manager Regis that we should probably delay any decision on this until later. I don't think we should go a full year with it necessarily, but and I do think it needs some consideration. I think that was only one person that really raised an issue about the taxes, although there's been historic, difficulties with it. So I think that for now we just leave this on the table.
Yeah. So, Board Member Paquette.
I'm just thinking maybe bring it back to the meeting after our hiatus. So we'll have made it through the summer, and, yeah, that would be my recommendation.
I just asked administration, I know that there has been a proposal to move the budget process a little bit earlier this year. By the time we come back in September, will budget talks be fully underway?
Correct, we'll be probably in our second or third work session. Is that,
that's great to know. I think that the earlier the better. So, Madam Clerk, could we just move this discussion item and just see it again on our agenda at our September meeting?
Yes, and I'll find the information that was presented last year and include that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thanks to the board for looking at this again. I think that it's obvious that we're kind of still in the position we were in last year, so I think it's good for us to have some more time to think it over, and then we will revisit this in the fall. Well, that brings us to the end of our scheduled agenda items. That brings us to our citizen comments. Do we have anyone signed in for citizen comments?
We do not.
Okay. Anyone in the room that has citizen comments?
Anthony?
Oh, we have someone in the room though.
Okay.
We have, sorry, go ahead.
Tony Bachlan, Inside City Limits. The comments that I have today are my own and not of those of the council. I would like to thank Casey for her presentation today and her presentation to council. I'm gonna slow down because I'm excited that the board is going to review this at their next meeting, and I hope that Casey and the chair can work together on a plan. I have been fortunate to attend some seminars about early childhood education, and I strongly believe that an investment in our children and taking care of our children will pay back in our future. Look at what the issues that we're facing from yesterday: expanded mental health and substance abuse treatment in our community. We can mitigate those things. It is proven, it is studied, and we can mitigate them by taking care of our children at a young age, 3 to 5, and really focusing on those ages, making sure that they're prepared to learn when they get into school, and having the tools and the social skills to be ready to learn. I was a latchkey child, and I raised my brothers, all three of them. My mom was a single mom and worked a lot, so my brother under me is in the Army. My brother under him is getting married this weekend and is a corrections officer now, just past the academy in Las Vegas. And my youngest brother is a professional, semi-pro BMX rider. So we're well-rounded. But we didn't, I was lucky, we were all lucky to, I was old enough to watch my brothers, and not everybody has that opportunity. As we expand as a community, welcoming in the Coast Guard, building new subdivisions, we also need to keep an eye on all the other aspects of where we need to grow as a community as well. It probably isn't one solution, and it's going to be a long and hard road to decide and figure out how the solution is going to look as a community. But starting the conversation is the most important part, and for that I thank you and your board, Casey, for bringing that to light in this community. There are examples of communities in Alaska who have already failed at this. Juneau, for one, has failed at this, and is suffering the repercussions now of their city having to step in to provide childcare, to have a robust economy, and to support the robust economy that they have. So we can learn from the past and from history, and we can learn from studies and what has happened already, and we can mitigate and try and be on the right foot as best as possible. So I really do thank the board for taking that up and giving that the attention that it deserves. So thank you. And thank you all for all your service on the board. It's very appreciated.
Thank you, Councilor Kline. Let's see, Board Member Paquette.
Thank you. Thank you to everybody who came. Thank you, Casey, for your excellent presentation. I think my comment is a broader one today. I sat in on a couple of meetings with the electric department about some rate issues there, and we're dealing with the harbor, getting the harbor rates right and storage rates right. And in general, I think it's time that the city's gonna, there's some things that we've been kind of kicking the can down the road for a long time on. And I think 2021 is the year where all of that kicking of the can has to stop. So just looking forward to working through some of the very difficult issues that we have, like childcare, like electric rates, and doing it from our hearts with the right intentions and the right purpose. And so I'm excited. I'm excited about what's coming, and there are going to be some very difficult conversations coming up, though, and we need to have them. Like, we can't just keep ignoring them. So thank you to everyone.
Thank you. Before I forget, administration, do you have any comments?
Yeah, I'd just like to thank Casey for her presentation. I was at the council meeting, she presented it, and she does a really good job, and I think it's a good thing for the community. We're just trying to figure out a way to make it work. I think that's the biggest thing we all need to work on. How do we make it work? So, thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Board Member Lawrence.
I too would like to, I guess I'm excited about this child care program. I think that it's something that the city of Seward and the community of Seward really needs. And, I know a lot of people that have their kids in different daycares, and I know a lot who would like to have their children in daycare that can't find a spot. So I think it's great, and I think that having the city help get the program started is a great idea. We'll say, I think that private enterprise is much more efficient than government programs. And I think that the end goal should be to help a private enterprise, a private individual or a group get this program started and running, and I think that it will be much more successful in the long run. But I'm very excited about it, and also the harbor tariffs. I think that this is something that's been long overdue. So I'm glad that it's been resolved, and that the rates are going to get more in line with the rest of the state. I think that's good. And as far as the vessel tax goes, I also think that it's good that we're going to follow up on that, and I'm glad that the information is going to be provided to us again, because for me, digging through emails can sometimes be very cumbersome. So I appreciate that the clerk will get us that information. Thank you.
Thank you. Board Member Hughes?
Yes, I'd like to thank Ms. Werner again for her presentation, and we seem to, it's interesting, I didn't envision some of the areas that we might end up being in as an advisory board for the City of Seward. We're talking child care, electrical wage, tax structures, and various other items. So we're deeply involved, and I think we're progressing in the right direction as a board to help solve some of these issues or provide important input to the council for these issues. And I want to thank everybody for their service and their help with this matter.
Thank you. Board Member Jaffa?
Yeah, thank you. And a shout out to the whole board, and we have presented ourselves, I think, very nicely where people want to bring things to us and ask for our counsel. I think that's a tribute to the efforts that we make and the function that we have as an advisory to the city. That's all great. I would say that the nature of Seward is so spectacular that it's an easy sell. To show that we've got a bright future, it's really not hard to show. How we get there, it takes a lot of people. And, I'll just give a shout out to Jeannie Sether. When we talk about Nana Nugget, Carl and I and others have children that benefited tremendously from Jeannie Sether, the traditional Nana. And that's not to say there aren't other Jeannie Sethers out there, and we can encourage them, so I'm all for that. I would also say that it's not always the giant steps that people take that get you to the final correct goal. They're baby steps. And sometimes these board meetings are a series of baby steps because it's a group activity. So I'm happy to participate in that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so my final comment, I would actually like to ask the clerk to clarify something. I believe it was the last council meeting, City Council decided to start having their meetings in person again in kind of a hybrid format in the month of April. I believe the first meeting, it was going to be open to the public as well as Zoom, and the second meeting, they were going to be back fully in person. And they had talked about whether that was going to apply to boards and commissions as well, because we usually follow suit. So Madam Clerk, could you please just share with the board what the plan is going forward as far as what our meeting structure will look like?
Well, actually, there's an item on the agenda for council on Monday night to consider the pros and cons of reopening. At the end of March when they had their last meeting, we had had a whole month of 0 cases. And the idea was perhaps the first meeting in April would be on Zoom, and then the second meeting in April would be transitioned back to being open in the public. But then we've had some recent cases that might have an impact on that decision. So Monday night, council will take up the topic and have a discussion and decide what the next steps will be for them. So.
Okay. All right, Thank you for that update. So, if that were to if they were to vote to go back in person, would that take effect immediately? Would that mean that our work session would then be in person this month, just as a hypothetical?
Well, it depends on what they decide to do and what their plan is, but you as a body, PACAB can make, you can make an autonomous decision for yourselves to do your meetings. You don't have to wait for council to make that decision. Planning and zoning had their meeting last night in public, and they had quite a few people turn out for it, and protocols were in place, and everyone observed social distancing and mask wearing, and all the CDC recommendations. So it can happen. I think it really comes down to the board's desire.
Okay, thank you so much for that clarification, Madam Clerk. I will say that from a personal stance, I get my second dose of the vaccine today, so 2 weeks from then, I feel that I am fully safe to not spread the virus to others, and so I was planning to be back in person at our meeting in May, as that is currently available to all of us, is to be in the room. But as far as Zoom continuing to be a possibility, I think that that's something we need to wait for council's decision on. So I just wanted to mention that so everyone can know that that change might be coming down the line. So moving on from that, I'd like to again echo everyone in thanking Casey so much for taking her time to be here and to prepare for this meeting and to speak to council and to put all of the volunteer effort that goes into this. And to kind of piggyback off of what Tony said, I think that we are really lucky to live in an age where we have a lot of data, where we can see now some of the root causes of the problems that we have in our society. I think that it's really interesting when you look at things like substance misuse, that gets traced all the way back to early childhood traumas and to those adverse childhood experiences. When we're looking at that, CVU put out a really interesting press release the other day, and they had a paragraph in there talking about stigma and trying to reduce the stigma associated with substance misuse and how people don't seek help because it's such a stigmatized thing, and it really is a health disorder. But to circle that back to this child care discussion that we're having, I really think that the long-term solution to things like substance misuse is taking care of our kids when they're in these really vulnerable times. And I think that this is not just important, but one of the most important things that we can do as a community to raise our community up. So I am heavily invested in making sure that this community's parents and families get the support that they need. In whatever way that comes about. I'm looking forward to working more with Casey on how the city can support this project specifically, but I think we can also brainstorm some more ideas. I know that a big barrier to people getting certified is that it's a pretty onerous process through the state, and I don't know if there is a way that the city can help with that at all, if there's a person in the city that could be maybe trained to be proficient in that process so that when people do want to open child care centers or when more homes want to open up as licensed child care facilities, we can increase those numbers, because even if we add 40 to the number we already have, that's not even half of the number of kids we have under 5. So this would be a huge chunk, and it would be a huge piece of the solution, but I don't think it's not the only part of it. So I look forward to more discussions about other ways that we can improve moving forward as well. So I'll just look around to see if anyone else has anything to add, any final comments. All right, thank you all so much for your time today, and I would like to adjourn the meeting at 1:22 p.m.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.